So, good morning, everyone, again. Let's say a quick prayer, just thanking the benefactors for allowing us to be here today, for this group, for this gathering, for the opportunity of learning under their guidance and inspiration. And with that permission, would like to start our study today. So be it.
So be it.
Amen.
So, let me share the book with you all. Last week, we were studying chapter 29. And chapter 29 is about meetings and societies. And we started item 347. Since we are halfway through it, or at least we started already, I'll go back to the beginning of this item. So 347, groups that are just starting out are often faced with a lack of mediums. Mediums are certainly essential elements for spiritist gatherings, meetings, but they are not indispensable, and it would be incorrect to suppose that there is nothing that can be done without them. Just highlighting that Kardec is talking about spiritist meetings, not only mediumship meetings, so showing that mediumship work is part of a spiritist meeting, but as he says here, is not everything. Obviously, medium are necessary for a meeting intended to conduct experiments, just as musicians are required for a concert. But when the purpose is serious study, there are many useful and profitable issues that group members may address by themselves. Moreover, groups that depend on mediums can accidentally lose them, and it would be a shame to believe there was therefore nothing more to do except disband. Spirits themselves can, for certain periods, lead groups into the situation in order to teach them to get along without mediums. So perhaps the study is important especially during the beginning, the formation of a new group. And that's why, sometimes, we can work hard on studying, creating a strong group in terms of knowledge of spiritism. Then when mediums are available, then start mediumship work. We might add that this may even be necessary so that the group profits more from the teachings, allowing it to dedicate a certain amount of time to meditate on them. Scientific societies do not always have instruments required for observation available, and yet that does not mean they have nothing to discuss. So here Kardec is drawing a parallel to scientific societies. That is, despite the fact that sometimes certain research groups, they don't have the necessary equipment to do their research, the instruments. They always have something to do. And to study, go to the theory and study in detail, create discussion groups and groups like this one, it's so important, because to say that we are spiritists is easy, but to really know spiritism, it requires a lot of dedication of study. And I remember mentioning the case of Moses and the revelations, that around 400 years before the coming of Christ, the revelations stopped completely. And that was a very profitable period in Judaism, because they would go to the synagogues and discuss and elaborate around the teachings that they already had received through the prophets, through the revelations, and so on. So they dedicated themselves to the material they had, and they were not expecting anything new. So they were actually creating this strong basis for the coming of Jesus. So when Jesus came, people know in depth Judaism more than they would have had they kept on receiving revelations or every now and then. Let me see, yeah. In the absence of poets and speakers, literary societies read and discuss the works of ancient and modern authors, while religious societies encourage meditation upon the scriptures. Spiritist societies should do the same, and it will be to their great advantage to promote conferences where participants read and discuss everything involving Spiritism. So we see how much study is encouraged, the gatherings, and they are really important. They create also a strong liaison amongst the members of a group. And that's why especially for those who are starting, setting up a Spiritist group, it's important to create this bond with its members so that any work that comes after that, including, of course, mediumship work, we find, the foundations, strong foundations there to, be very, very successful. Read and discuss everything involving Spiritism, both pros and cons. Such a discussion, in which all participants make a contribution from their own reflections, can result in rays of light that would otherwise go unnoticed in a private reading. Some people say, oh, yes, I read, constantly reading the Spiritist books and so on. Yes, it's nice, it's good, it's important. But when we take that to, a study group with other people, we start to see from their perspectives, their understanding, and that gives us, tremendous contribution in consolidating the understanding that we already have, the knowledge that we gain, and of course we share with them. And also, as I mentioned before, we create these bonds with the members of the group. Remember what Kardec advised here for a good Spiritist group, and spirits, of course, and Kardec stressed that, is that it is important to have these homogeneity of thoughts, of intentions when setting up a mediumship group. That will create a strong group that can overcome the natural difficulties with regarding mediumship. So, and it starts here, in this study group. I remember when I was in London, we, used to have a mediumship group a mediumship meeting in the group that I used to go. But regularly, on a regular basis, we would meet on a Saturday in someone's house. We would go there and study for 1.5 hours, the medium's book, and have a cup of tea or coffee afterwards. And that was so good because it created a relationship amongst the members of the group that would go beyond the mediumship meeting to the study and, of course, to socializing, to getting together and talking about even trivialities. But it was very good, very good. And whenever possible, I advise people to do that, to have these extra informal study groups if they don't already have an official study group there, because it creates this interaction, gives opportunity to form a strong group. Alongside special works, newspapers also contribute facts, news, articles, and reports on the virtues and vices that give rise to serious moral problems, whose solution only Spiritism can provide. So we see that Kardec also, advises us to study and get to know about the society where we are, because the social and moral problems that we study in Spiritist books will be found in the society that we belong. And, it is in there that we are going to act as human beings, not as spiritists in the sense of studying and learning more about spiritism, but where we have the opportunity, the laboratory, where we are going to practice the virtues that we gain. And of course, face the moral problems of our times. Hi, Liz.
Hi, everyone. I think it's important when we do our studies, especially in the group meetings, that we try and share our own examples when we're discussing certain aspects, whether it's moral, whether, whatever the paragraph is describing, because we need to relate the teachings to real life situations, so that we can recall, specific situations that you find yourself in. And that's why it's important where, it's not just, in a book, you close the door to the meeting and forget it. It's actually living it and being able to recall, well, I remember we discussed that. Now I've got a similar situation. Perhaps I should apply this. So that it's going from learning to understanding to experience.
Yes, indeed. It's very important. And very often people come with examples to passages of the books from their own experience, something that they read, they knew, or, someone of their acquaintance. And they bring that as an example for us. And, it's very important for us to see Spiritism in the real context, outside the study group. Yeah, you're right. Hello, Christine.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that on Tuesday night, I was with a Spiritist group, and we're going through the Spiritist book. And just as we came to a certain passage, I had a sense of smell that I knew was my father. And it's happened a number of times that I've my mother's perfume that I know she wears, and there's nobody around me, there's nobody here. I don't have the door open. I can't, and I know that it's my mother and father, or other people I know, and it's been associated with a smell. But it was interesting that it came up in the last Spiritist group that I was in on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So I agree with Liz about that.
Yes, they come and join us. If they are better off, spiritually speaking, they'll come to help us. If they are not, they come to join the study, On the other side as well, they have this identity with a group of incarnate, So they come and join that group, even from, the side where they are. Well, for them, it's very, how would I say, rewarding in terms of because we tend to think that spirits only learn in spirit world and we learn here, but the interchange happens. They come to study here with us, and we also at night when we sleep we may join the group in spirit, to study, to prepare ourselves. So yeah, it was nice. Thanks, Christine. This is also a way to show that it is connected to all aspects of societal life. I mentioned that, we, have to be in the world. As, the passage says, to be in the world without belonging to the world. So we are here on a temporary basis, all of us, but we have to, live here and do something here. Because I know people who study Spiritism, preparing themselves for the afterlife. But what about today? What about your family? What about your friends, your workplace, and your society? So they are more, concerned with the other side. And in the end, we end up making here things that go against what we are studying. If we don't pay attention, if we don't try to apply today. not when we, return to spirit, but today. Otherwise, we would be one person, when we are studying spiritism in the Spiritist Center, and another person when we are, working, meeting with people in the streets, driving our cars, go in public transport, crowded, trains and so on. And it is for us to apply immediately. Hi, Liz.
Hi guys, good morning to all. You said very well, Moni, we are one person, and sometimes I think we are still having that old thought that once this body goes, we are going to suddenly transform. And I think this is one of the motives that people sometimes get so engrossed in, I'll prepare for the next, but we are blinded for the now, as you said. But yeah, we are one person throughout all this time from our creation to now. And as we study in Spiritism, we have the influence of everything that happened to us beyond, throughout the past that we know, beyond there, backways. And we are going to continue from now to build our future. Now is where we sow the future.
Yes, indeed. And Liz, you reminded me of a story that the Brazilian medium, Divaldo Franco, used to tell about his colleague. And he used to say, why don't you go on holidays? No, because I'm saving for the time I retire. So everything she was saying, no, I'm saving this for the time I retire. And he said that she spent years just saving for the time she retired and not doing anything, not buying anything. The person who lives in the future, not in the present. And in the end, she died before retiring. So he always mentioned that. And for us, yes, we shouldn't wait. When I return to spirit, perhaps I'll go to a better place because, I'm reading and preparing myself. No, we are preparing our souls for today. We can start today. And it depends on how we understand, how much we understand and apply the doctrine. Because the doctrine is practical, it's not just theoretical. The theory is there to have support for us to apply, to find ways to apply it today. And then that will give us a better condition. Then we will be already experienced in the practice of the virtues, the knowledge that is given to us through the books. And one important aspect, we see how many times moral improvement is stressed within Spiritism. Some people, they dedicate themselves to the mediumistic, to the even anemic techniques, because we are, the spirit with our perispirits and all the potential that we have as perispirits. We can work with energy, we can connect with A and B. Yes, we can practice that and develop that, yes. But, what are we going to do with that? What are we gaining? If I can, for instance, every night consciously detach myself from my physical body and go somewhere. I can go somewhere. I can go to a disco, to a bar, or I can go to places where I can provide, energy to people in need, to hospitals, for instance. So the spirits, they didn't, they were not concerned too much with the technical details of the development of our spiritual faculties and the potential of our perispirits. They gave us enough, but their attention is on our moral side, because that will actually put, how would I say, efficiency in any other virtue that we manage to cultivate and develop. Because they say, oh yeah, I have mediumship since early age, and so what are we doing with the faculty? That's why they stress so much in moral improvement and are constantly calling our attention to that aspect the science that they brought to us. We would maintain that the Spiritist society that organizes its work in this sense, arming itself with the necessary materials, will not have to wait very long for direct spirit communications. So when the spirits see that, yeah, that group is in the right condition, well, mediums will come, people will start to show signs of mediumship if they are, they already have the organic condition for that. It's just that sometimes they prevent it from manifesting itself, so making the person first, dedicate to the study, then to the practice. And it's not always the case, of course, but sometimes it's the other way around. It's actually the faculty that calls their attention to the need to study. And but things will come when we are ready. As Janet Duncan used to say, work will come when the work is ready. That is why we have called attention to truly serious groups at this point. Groups that most ardently desire to learn rather than to try and find a pastime. So see number 207 in the chapter, The Development of Mediums. Yes, you see, it's not a pastime, it's not, for curiosity, it's not just to increase the knowledge that we have regarding the spiritual world and so on. But it is actually to help us in our development, in our moral progress more than anything else. Rivalries among societies. This is very humane, isn't it? We are learning about, moral values and moral development, and we still see that a kind of a human behavior, even amongst spiritist societies. And Kardec was very concerned with that, and that's why he bothered writing about this here. So 348. Each group that deals exclusively with intelligent communications, and each group dedicated to physical manifestations, has its own mission. So he starts by saying that, groups have different tasks, different missions. Some are dedicated to intelligent communications, some are dedicated to receiving instruction from good spirits, some are dedicated to alleviating the suffering of those in spirits, and also here. Some are dedicated to physical manifestations, some dedicated to research. So we see that, there are different groups with different tasks, and no group is better than the other if they dedicate themselves to, their share of the work. However, neither type would be in harmony with the true spirit of Spiritism if they were to regard each other as rivals. This is something, that's so common amongst ourselves, human beings, to, see people as rivals. But we should work really hard, to see the importance of every group, small groups, large groups, groups with a mediumship work in progress, groups that have no mediumship work, groups working with children, groups working in this and that. So we should regard each one of them as someone giving their contribution, and their contribution is as important as the contribution of any other group. So the one who cast the first stone would simply prove that it was dominated by evil influences. So we see it's a denial of the quality, of good quality of a group, if we behave in that way. because we clearly show that we are under evil influences. And if we are under evil influences, it's because we are not doing our homework as a group. If we remember, not too long ago, Kardec was saying what it was important to have a group, sound mediumship group or spiritist group as such, not to be under the influence of evil spirits, will always be, but not to give room to them, not to open the door to them. We have to defend ourselves all the time, because we know that there's always, someone here in the spiritual world who is against the work of good. But the difference is, if we prepare ourselves properly, we can basically shield this influence and not give way to that. And Kardec is saying here that, every group that see other groups as rivals is already opening a large door, an avenue, inviting evil spirits to influence them. Although approaches may differ, all must concur in the common objective, which is research and the spreading of the truth. So this is the common subject. It doesn't matter if it's more towards the physical manifestation, intellectual or intelligent communication, or work of assistance, whatever. The objective of each and every group should be research in the sense of learning from what they are doing, message from enlightened spirits, message from suffering spirits, cases that come for us to help and assist, or physical manifestations with all the variations that this type of mediumship work presents. But we should always research, understand, learn with that, and of course spread the truth, spread the knowledge that we gain with that. Any antagonism, which is actually nothing more than excited pride, would supply weapons to detractors and would therefore harm the cause such groups mean to defend. This is it, it is a way to, to basically work against the cause that we say we defend by acting in that way. That's why we say, any imperfection, pride, like here, excited pride, and any other we can think of. And we know the world is full of that, including ourselves. We aren't that evolved yet. So we should put every vice that we bring aside and concentrate on the aim of Spiritism. So if we want to defend it, if we want to create a sound group, that's what we should do. Not that we'll become perfect, not that we will not make mistakes. And sometimes people think, oh, we are doing everything that Kardec says we should do and the spirits advise us to do. But, even though every now and then we are under heavy attack of spirits and even incarnates that, want to cause harm to the group. Yes, it's natural. And we are not perfect yet. So we should take all these situations as lessons. Because if we are not perfect and we are walking towards perfection, we need lessons to learn how to do that. So we should take these as lessons, but be very careful not to, dismantle a whole group because of our negative contribution or the negative contribution from the individuals composing that group. And so we go back to the fact that it is very important to create a strong bond within the group with all its members, at least those in charge, officially in charge of conducting the activities of the group. It's so nice to have, gatherings, and apart from the regular meetings within the Spiritist group, to have regular gatherings to, socialize with the members, to get to know them, beyond the four walls of the Spiritist center. 349. These last considerations apply equally to all groups that may differ on certain doctrinal points. So Kardec is extending that to groups that have, differences concerning points in regard to the doctrine, the perception, the understanding of that. As we stated in the chapter on contradictions, these differences are most of the time based on side issues or even upon simple words. The way people understand certain words, certain sentences, and sometimes the differences are concerning issues that are not important. They are not at the essence of Spiritism, but they are things that, of minor importance. And what they say is that we shouldn't make, a fuss about these small differences. And we should see the groups as we, have been advised to see groups working on different aspects of mediumship, from materialization to intelligent communication. We should also see groups that understand what is being said in slightly different ways. We should see them as also doing that task, and perhaps, who knows, perhaps in the near future they will get to see things, differently, and all the fuss, of today will have disappeared. And also should respect the way, the perception of people. If they perceive certain things in their own way, that shows us that, they can go as far as that. We can't impose our understanding on them. We may share our opinion, tell them how we see things, but we can't convince them. Sometimes it's a question of time. They need time to get to the point to understand things correctly, as it were. But they can't just simply accept because we said, but because they got to understand it in that way. Hence, it would be puerile to fragment a group to form another just because members do not think exactly the same. All members of this group has to, think like this, like that. If there is, any difference in the way one member or part of some of the members of the group, they see things, small things, in a slightly different way, they are not fit for this group. They should go and create their own group. So no, that is not the idea. It would be even worse if different groups or societies in the same city mutually regarded one another with jealousy. So common. We see, how creates this federation, and then other groups will create that society, or that to sort of create the arrival to that other federation, and so on. And we see that in so many other aspects of life. People are not happy or can't accept the way the group leading that society, the way they think, the way they do things. So people just walk away and go and create a different one, instead of using that opportunity, to get to common grounds and learn to work with differences. So we should avoid that within Spiritism. Not that we should be hypocrites and pretend to accept things, and behind the scenes we are there manipulating and saying, nasty things about, A and B and C. No, we should be sincere. Of course, Kardec said, if we are too much in sort of in contradiction with the rest of the groups, it's better that we go. Yes, it's fine. But, to create a situation every now and then for small differences or ways of understanding things, no, we should do our utmost to keep a strong groups. Of course, there are times when this is not necessary, and it's fine, but It shouldn't be always the case. Otherwise, the groups will be reduced to 1 or 2 people only. We know that jealousy between individuals who compete with each other can cause reciprocal physical harm. But when there is no speculation, jealousy is nothing more than trivial rivalry provoked by self-importance. This is the root of all this, self-importance. Some people think that their opinion is more important than the others. Their opinion is the correct one. Their way of doing things is the only right way to do things. That, they, oh, they can do things in this way and, very easily. But we sometimes forget that other people they deserve the chance to get to the point where we are. If we already have more experience than other people, we got there because we had the opportunity to get there. So other people also need this opportunity. And if we just keep on creating these problems out of us, too much self-importance, then we won't see the Spiritist movement moving forward. Since it is impossible for a society to bring all adherents together in one place, those who truly want to spread the truth, who have an exclusively moral objective, should be very pleased at the appearance of new groups. And if there is any competition between them, it should only be geared towards excelling in the area of the good. So very clear. Yes, sometimes it would be more advantageous if instead of having one large group with friction every now and then, that 2 groups are formed, groups that will work harmoniously. But as it's been said here, the only competition is actually in the goods that they do, nothing else, Those who claim to be in exclusive possession of the truth will have to prove it in light of this motto, love and charity. For this is the motto of all true Spiritists. Love and charity. Love is a very noble sentiment, and charity is the action of this love. It's the practical side of love. And if we don't do that, and we know very well from the Spiritist books that without charity, there is no salvation. It's not without mediumship, without the Spiritist group, without this or without that. It's without charity, and charity is the offspring of love. Love for our neighbors, love for ourselves, and above everything else, love for God. So we should evaluate any situation with the lenses of this motto. Do they pride themselves on the superiority of the spirits who assist them? Let them prove it by the superiority of the teachings they receive and by practicing them. This is an infallible criterion to distinguish those who are on the best path. Yeah, the superiority of the teachings should come with the superiority of the practice. And if we see that theory is one thing and practice is something else, then we understand that the group is actually hollow inside. It's just the outside. Okay, no questions, no comments. Let's move forward. Some Spiritists who are more presumptuous than logical sometimes try to impose strange and impractical systems under the prestige of the venerable names they adorn themselves with. Again, we see human deficiencies interfering with the work. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Munir, sorry for arriving late.
No
You read
problem,
some
Charles.
spiritists and you should have read some spirits.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, and another thing is
Yeah.
it's not always easy, these things we just read, because sometimes you see that there is something quite obviously wrong in a group. So you go there, you talk with the leader of the group, and you tell him, look, I think this is not 100% correct. Kardec is telling this and that. And so you go with arguments and so on. And then you see the leader answering you, oh, Charles, my poor guy, I think you are obsessed. So it's very difficult sometimes to make the things move. And when this happens, I do not insist. I just let them discover by themselves.
Yeah, you're right, Charles. Yes. And also the spirits are used here as excuses, like in this case, oh yeah, you are under the influence of evil spirits. That's why he's saying this. And yes, yes. And, as I mentioned before, we can't convince people if they don't want to listen to. They have to go through experiences and then learn. But of course, if we prepare ourselves and try to work on our, the level of self-importance that we have in regard to spiritism, and like here, imposing theories in practical systems and so on. And we see that very often. People who have this natural, skillful leadership, they go to the Spiritist Center and they want to do the same thing there, and they want to add this and that. Well, Kardec, said that Spiritism is not that. It may work, yeah, but outside the Spiritist Center, because this is not part of Spiritism. So we should be very careful and always go back to love and charity. That is the real motto in everything that we do. But yes, Charles, and it's interesting also that certain problems, they come on a regular basis. I've seen the Spiritist groups that they started to grow. And then because they started to grow, the initial core of the group started to feel uncomfortable because they felt as if they were losing control. They were not the only ones making decision there. They had to listen to more people now. And so problems started, and then again, split, two groups were formed and started all over again. So every now and then that group, the initial group, would grow and then split and then go back to, a reduced number of members and then grow again and split. But it was doing, in the end of the day, it was doing its job. It was, helping create other groups. Because what, is important to do is to have not a large group or the largest group in town, but to have groups that, are cohesive, groups that work together. They are really well connected, prepared for the work. Hi, Charles.
Yes, we had exactly the same in France, in Paris. In 1990, there was one group which was growing, then splitting. So the leader of the first group was, no, it was difficult for him. But then you had two groups growing, and then the first group splitted again, so a third group. And today we have 10 or 15 groups in Paris.
Yeah.
At the end, it was positive.
Yeah. In the end, there was something positive out of that. But, it is a problem that those people, those members of the group who, were, the pivot of this situation, they had to work on themselves. It was more of a personal work than they were doing, in a different way. They were doing something positive for Spiritism, but they were not doing enough for themselves,
Yeah, exactly. And the same happened recently in Liège. And you have some person, and in Brussels as well, some person going to a group, oh, I don't like this group, but please try the other, and then try another. Ah, this one I like. And then the person finds his way in one of those groups. Everyone has a different particularity.
Yeah.
And that's in the diversity that at the end we have the richness.
Yes, and you know what Kardec says is not you can just say that group is better than that other group. No, I mean you know it's slightly different the way they work or what they do. You know, we've seen here from intellectual messages to intelligent messages to physical manifestation. So the group that works with physical manifestation is the best one, or the one that receives intelligent messages from highly evolved spirits and guidance and so on. No, we can't say, which one is the best. Each one is doing their job, and their job should be respected in terms of importance as any other job is, if it's well done. The important thing is to do it well. I'll read it again because I read some spiritists. Some spirits who are more presumptuous than logical sometimes try to impose strange and impractical systems under the prestige of the venerable names they adorn themselves with. Common sense makes quick work of these utopias, however, but in the meantime, they can sow doubts and uncertainty among members. This is the thing, to give way to our pride, to when we receive a message of a supposed important person, and with something that is, it's not exactly what we've been learning and studying, but because it's been said by the spirit so and so, oh yes, we accept that, and wow, it came through me. So this should be avoided. I mean, we should see every communication in general, as a blank sheet of paper. It doesn't matter who, is the spirit telling this or that. We should look first at the content of the message, the benefits that come out of the message, and use the lenses of love and charity. This often causes momentary disagreements. Besides the means that we have spelled out for evaluating such systems, there is another criterion that can provide an exact measure of their worth: the number of followers they recruit. Reason said that the system most accepted by the masses should be closer to the truth than the one rejected by the majority, who see the members disappear. Thus, we can be sure that even spirits reject the examination of their own teachings. It is because they know how weak they are. So yes, good spirits, they'll never say, no, don't doubt, my message, my identity, it's me, you have to accept what I say in full stop. No. And it's interesting to say that Kardec is saying that, what is accepted by the majority at that moment is, closer to the truth than what is rejected by the majority. And this is another way to examine what we get in terms of messages and advice from spirits. 350. If spiritism is to transform humankind, as has been averred, it can only do so by improving the masses, which will happen only gradually, little by little, as individuals themselves improve. This is very important. If we want to see a transformation, we have to start the transformation by transforming us first. What good is it to believe in the existence of spirits if such belief does not make one better, kinder, and more accepting of one's fellow beings, and humbler and more patient in adversity? That's what we mentioned at the beginning, it has to be practiced today. now. So transforming ourselves in the way we behave and how we see things and how patient we are when faced with adversity. What good would it do to those who are greedy to be spiritists if they continue to be greedy? To the proud if they continue to be full of themselves? To the envious if they remain jealous? Thus, everyone could believe in the manifestations, yet humankind could remain at a standstill, as we have seen. So again, the importance. I know people, also spiritists, and from other religions as well, and creeds, and who they think other people need to accept what they have to say, what they believe, and those people should change. But they themselves don't change. So Kardec is putting it here very clearly. First and foremost, if we want to give a contribution to the world, the first place where we should start to work hard is in ourselves, with us. Because by transforming ourselves through our behavior, then we become an acting element in society and start this transformation. Some people may like what we have to say. Some people may accept what we tell them about spiritism and the reality of the spirit world and so on and so forth, mediumship and communication with spirits, materialization that sometimes seems to be so fantastic for some people. But of all these things, the most important thing is how we behave towards them and other people. And that's why Kardec says, we measure the effects of these teachings by the transformation that its elements or the group's elements begin to show in that direction. This is not how God intends it, however. It is toward a providential purpose that all serious spiritist societies should tend, grouping together all those who have the same sentiments. Then there will be unity, sympathy, and fraternity among them, rather than any vain and childish antagonism provoked by self-centeredness. There will be more good deeds than mere words. Then they will be strong and powerful because they are supported on an unshakable foundation, the good of all. Then they will be respected and will silence all mockers because they will speak in the name of the evangelical morality respected by all. So let's finish this one last paragraph in this chapter. I still have some time. This is the course along which we have endeavored to take Spiritism. The flag we have raised on high is that of Christian and humanitarian Spiritism, around which we are happy to see so many people gathered on all points of the earth, because they understand that the anchor of salvation, the safeguard of public order, the sign of a new era for humankind, is to be found there. We invite all Spiritist societies to participate in this great work. From one end of the world to the other, may they extend the hand of fraternity, and thereby they shall snare evil in the laces of an inextricable web. So we see Kardec puts here very clearly the purpose of Spiritism, of all the work that we do. As I said before, some people, they are really concerned, or their interest is only on the physical manifestation without any, self-improvement or learning from these manifestations. But Kardec puts it very, very clearly. And if the aim of a spiritist group since the very beginning is what he says here, you know, union, fraternity, and so on. So the group should work with that in mind. And every simple task that we do in a small or large group, it doesn't matter. It will be done with this aim in view, with this, you know, purpose, to unite the groups and make, you know, the earth better, humankind better. Okay. Right. Okay, so next week we have a new chapter, Regulations of the Parisian Society for Spiritist Studies. I'll stop here and ask Pablo, are you going to do the irradiation today, the prayer? Yeah.
Yes, I can do. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just stop recording.
Okay. So, my brothers and sisters, let's unite our thoughts as we are gathered here together to learn more about mediumship, about spiritism, about the moral